All right, y'all. We are international once again. We're back in Australia, and I'm so excited for this conversation that is long overdue. We're going to get into that a little bit later. But, Kat, I just want to say, first and foremost, before we even get started, thank you for being here. I do want to put a trigger warning. We are going to talk about domestic violence. Me and her are both survivors. Can be triggering our conversation, but it's such an important conversation to have. And I'm so honored that you finally agreed to come on Watch Us Thrive. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for your patience with me as well.
Oh, absolutely. Girl, I've been there. I know exactly how you feel. And I really just think that, everyone's timeline is different, right? Everyone's healing journey and talking about these really traumatic things like trauma, whether it's domestic violence or any kind of abuse, it's not easy. So, we were actually supposed to record this a year ago and we had everything scheduled and then it didn't happen because you just weren't ready. And I totally understood and honored that. And I told you, listen, my invite is always open. Whenever you're ready, you come back to me when you feel like you're ready to have this conversation. A year later, she's here. She's done a lot of healing. I see you, sis. We're going to talk about that. But yeah, for anyone who's meeting you for the first time, I would love for you to briefly introduce yourself and let everyone know who is Kat Dunn.
Hi, everyone. So, yes, I'm Kat, and I will try my hardest to speak as well as I can because, as you can tell, I'm originally from England. I'm from a northeast city that many people have not heard of, and I tend to speak so fast, a lot of people think I'm Irish, which I'm not, unfortunately. So I lived in England my whole life. I didn't really know anything outside of England, other than, you go on holidays to Europe. I had a corporate job. I just got on with my life, dated, did everything that you do, like you're told to do in England. And my sister one day decided to move to Australia. And it completely blew my mind because the city I'm from is so small. Like Australia felt like it was on a different planet. And she just didn't come home and told me how amazing it was. So when I turned 30, she flew me out there. And I arrived and I absolutely fell in love with this country. And so basically, I spent the last 7 years desperately trying to stay here. I kept coming back on holidays and falling in love with the place. So now I get to live in Australia. I'm very excited about that. And I actually managed to start my own business and basically create a brand new life for myself, which is very exciting and not something I thought a working class girl from a very small northeast city in England would be able to do.
Yes, and I see you, sis. I see you on the stories. I see you on Instagram. We actually met because a life coaching program, shout out to Erica Kramer, completely changed both of our lives when it came to the whole personal development world. And that's how me and you connected. And, just to see the growth of when I first got into the sisterhood, I'm no longer there, but to see who you have become as a result, like I saw your podcast with Erica, I was like, "Oh my god, yes." I'm so proud of her for mustering up the strength to really talk about your experience with domestic violence and that relationship that was life-changing for you, right? So, before we even get started in that whole journey, I just wanna say I see you. I'm giving you your flowers. I'm so proud of the growth and the strength and the woman that you have become. You are the epitome of the type of guest that I like having on here. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, you'll already make me cry. I I appreciate that. It is yes, this is a very warm, safe space to be in, and yes, shout out to Erica Kramer, her coaching program, the Sisterhood. I owe a lot to that community of women. I owe a lot to her. Like she is the one that introduced me to you, and actually even planted the idea that I could tell my story and somebody might benefit out there. Like it did not occur to me. So yeah, I'm very grateful, and I strongly believe I am who I am now because of you and her and that community. Big props. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Everything you see in me, I see in you tenfold, honey. So thank you so much. So let's get into it. First, I always start every single guest to talk about childhood and adolescence. Briefly, you can give a little synopsis of what that looked like for you. And since we are going to focus around domestic violence, I want to know, was that something that you saw growing up? Was that something that you were familiar with as a kid?
Yes, definitely. In my household, my dad ruled with an iron fist. He was a very scary man, and he's very tall. My city, a lot of the men are quite short, and he was over 6 foot. He was never physically abusive to me. He was to my mother and to my brother in front of us. He had very, very strict rules about certain things. He didn't like us to make too much noise. We had to like be very well behaved, kind of seen and not heard. And then what would happen is I'd compete with my other siblings to get his attention and love. And I do that by, trying to get A stars or, be the first person to pass my driving test or do things to make him proud. Because if he wasn't proud, he tended to be angry. And my mother was tended to be the one that got the worst of it. But in herself, I could see there was a strongness in her that she wanted to get the last word. She wanted to have her say. And that was one of the reasons he would get so angry because he didn't want that. And over the years, I've seen her just become an absolute shell of herself to the point now where I can't even really have a conversation with her because everything's basically been beaten out of her. And I will give credit to my dad that he has really tried in the past, I'd say even maybe 20 years, to try and become a better person. I think he's realized how much he's lost. Me and my sister have both left that country and moved halfway across the world, and we don't go home. And I see the way he is with my mother now, and he is trying to make amends, but it is too little too late. And my mother is the way she is now. But I will say that after doing the work and working with my inner child and looking back on it, I can forgive a lot of it because I understand more that his childhood was so bad that he did the best he could with what he knew at the time. And I honestly believe he had such a bad childhood. He wanted to have kids to try and make up for it, but obviously didn't have the skills or the emotional maturity to be able to do that correctly. I am mad at him, but I'm not mad at him because I understand it more, but I couldn't as a child.
Right, absolutely, and that comes with doing the work, right? Erica talks about that all the time in the program and, just doing the whole personal development journey. When it comes to healing that inner child, we have to well, not have to, but we do have the permission to give our parents a little bit of grace and compassion because, like you said, they only knew what they knew when they knew it. It's not up to us to change them or fix them. You can't change the past, but you can move forward whether you do decide to continue a relationship with them or not. So, shout out to you for the self awareness. That's really commendable. I'm curious to know with the tumultuous kind of relationship that your parents had, did that play a role in the kind of relationships that you found yourself in, maybe like teenager and early adulthood before starting your whole personal development journey?
Yeah, again, I don't believe my dad really realized what he was doing, but from a very, very young age, he would drill into me that I had to make sure that I stayed attractive, that I stayed thin. If you get fat, a man does not want you. The man comes first. Make sure your man's satisfied. Bear in mind, I was about 7 and I didn't understand what it meant to service your man. So I think he was so unhappy in his marriage at certain points that he was trying to protect me and make sure that I didn't fall in the same trap, so to speak. But obviously, using language like that with a child, I don't think he meant to damage me as much as he did. But obviously, as I became a teen and everyone starts dating, and I was always the tomboy, I was always the one where the guys would come up and they'd be like, "Oh my God, can you introduce me to your friend?" And so, like, I was just desperate to basically be included in that. And so, from my very, very first boyfriend, it was he comes first, whatever he needs. He says jump, and I say how high. I remember dating one boy when I was younger who didn't like me with my hair down, so he would not let me into his house unless I had my hair tied up. And I actually did that. And I look back and go, wow, but it's because my dad told me that's how you're supposed to behave. So that lasted over 20 years, that ingrained behavior. And it's terrifying, but I understand where he was trying to come from at this age. But obviously, it's now been 20 years of abuse that could have been avoided if he had spoken to me or tried to integrate that into my childhood in the way that he did.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And that's why I always like starting off with childhood and adolescence because I say it all the time on my podcast. A lot of the things that we go through during that time period, it really shapes us into the woman or the man that we become as adults. And like I said, we are going to talk about your experience with domestic violence. And I'm sure that a lot of the things that you dealt with back then really led you to being with this abusive person later on in life. So the floor is yours. You talk about as much or as little as you're comfortable with. Take my audience on that journey of what that relationship was like before you finally decided to leave for good.
Well, when I say 20 years, I had a lot of long-term relationships. And when I look back, they're pretty much the same person, but obviously a different face.
That's
Now,
what Erica
obviously,
says, same man, different dick.
yeah, I just didn't want to say the D word.
Oh,
Um,
no, you can curse on this podcast, girl. You can
yeah,
say
yeah,
whatever.
exactly. Exactly. All right. That's exactly what I meant. But obviously, as the years progressed, the DV I was involved with changed. So obviously, when I was younger, it was more just like them walking all over me and treat me like a doormat and me just doing anything I could to satisfy and please them. When I got to my early 20s, I had a very, very long term relationship with somebody who it was toxic from the get go, but it was such a behavior I was used to that I actually didn't know that how bad it was. And the biggest problem with that one was the culture I'm from. We're big drinkers. We binge drink at weekends. You go on nights out. That's what we did. That's what we were used to. So me and my partner at the time, that was basically our life. Holidays, drinking, just getting on with things. That he drank a lot and I would try to keep up. So we'd end up in these horrendous arguments because I'd be so drunk that the slightest thing would set me off. And he was very inappropriate with other people in front of me. And what would happen with those fights was he would say things to me that was so disgusting. He knew I'd react physically, so I'd hit him first. I do not condone my behavior. I fully take responsibility for the fact that I would do that. But the difference is this was a very big guy. And if I hit him, I bounce off him. When he hits me, I'm floored. So he'd get me to do that. So then he had an excuse to hit me because I hit him first. Or he'd do things like throw my purse over a fence so I couldn't get it, or throw a slushie in my face in front of everybody. Things just to try and demean me, or punch walls next to my head so it wasn't me. And the next day, we'd be hungover and feel sorry for ourselves and just, we'll ignore that and just get on with it. And it was constant to the point where my friends would witness it and be like, this isn't normal. And I'm like, what do you mean it's not normal? We love each other. It's fine. And I just didn't know. And that went on for years and years and years to the point where I came to Australia. This person was with me. Like the feelings were growing apart and things like that. But I kept trying to stick with it because it's all I've ever known. And we did travel together and the violence escalated to a point where he hurt me quite badly. And when it happened, he immediately said, oh my God, I can't believe you just did that. You just hurt yourself. You threw yourself to the floor. Why would you do that? Why would you pin that on me? And it was the first time it had gotten that bad that I was like, oh my God, it was like snapped into my brain of like, this isn't normal. Oh my God. And then for the next few days, completely ignored the injury or completely ignored what was happening. And I was like, okay, I need to get out. This is scary. And we did break up, but we kept traveling together because I thought, oh, we'll be together a while. We're friends. It'll be fine. And it got worse. And there was another incident and it ended up with, I was on the floor of a hotel room and we were fighting about, he was calling me a whore. He was calling me the C word because some guy was talking to me downstairs, even though this guy was talking to me about something completely just benign. He then, I don't know how it happened, but I remember he came over to me and then started strangling me. And I thought, oh, this is it. I'm kind of like, oh, thank God, it could just stop because I'm just exhausted. We break up and it's still no better. And he stopped and blamed it on me because obviously it's my fault. Then said, if you do not leave, I am going to kill you. And I was like, it was a bit low, like, are you kidding me? Like, what on earth? We broke up and it's still like, so I was like, all right, this is insane. I cannot behave this way. So I did eventually, we absolutely parted ways. And I came back to Melbourne. My sister was really good to me. Shout out to her and her husband, Luke, who were just such rocks to me. And I didn't do the work. I didn't heal. I didn't do anything like you're supposed to do. I started drinking and going out and trying to find validation through anything else because I'm finally free. I can rebuild my life. And like a hunter to prey, somebody met me in a bar that could sense how vulnerable I was and how desperate I was for attention. And I slipped right back into a relationship just like that, literally months later. And this had been a long-term relationship. We're talking decades. And then I slipped straight into another one. That was a love bomb cycle, which I didn't recognize. I didn't know what that was. I just thought, oh my God, I've met somebody who makes me feel incredible and they think I'm incredible. And yeah, and then it was a lot of back and forth of, I didn't live in Australia at the time. And very early on, I saw some red flags of the way they behaved to me on nights out and stuff. But again, I'm used to that behavior. So I just brushed under the carpet. I live long distance, so there'd be phone calls or messages where I'd be attacked for something, or I was trying to desperately convince I hadn't done something that they said I'd done, but I was halfway across the world and there was nothing I could do to prove it. And it went on like this for many, many months. And for some reason, I kept clinging on. Well, I say some reasons because it's learned behavior. And I kept thinking, I'd just try harder. It'll get better. It'll get better. until eventually we became more of an item. I was in this country more permanently, and it's almost like it was 3.5 years. And when I look back on it, it just feels like one big,
Blur.
yeah, one big, like long, elongated moment of when I think back to things, I just remember like lying on the couch for like 3 days at a time, not eating and not knowing where they were, or because it was a case of, for me, it wasn't physical, it was emotional, it was manipulative, it was coercive control. And even though I've been in similar relationship, I didn't recognize it for what it was, because a lot of people tell you if they're not hitting you, it's not domestic violence. So I genuinely didn't think it was wrong. I just thought, well, I'm not behaving the way I'm supposed to behave. They've been hurt in the past. I need to prove I'm better. There was rules that they brought in that if I broke them, what was happening was I'd get punished by silent treatment,
Oh my
which
god.
I kind of think,
I
oh, it
feel
doesn't.
like I'm looking in the mirror right now because literally it's the same for me.
Yeah. I feel like you think, oh, this doesn't seem that bad. When you live with somebody and they literally
And they're not
completely
speaking
dismiss.
to you. Oh my god, you're creating all these scenarios in your head of like, "Oh my god, it's torture." I get it.
Yeah. But it's the case of like, because I just started, I realized when I looked at my Instagram, I had all these saved posts of narcissism and narcissist behavior, and I was trying to figure out what it was and if it's me and if it's them or what I can do. And when I looked at a silent treatment about like, it's not just being ignored, it's like they're basically invalidating your entire existence. And yeah, I'd lie on the couch for 3 days, hoping that they'd just come in and say something to me or acknowledge me in any way. And it was literally like they're in the house and they walk past you as if you're not there, like walk straight through you like you're a ghost. And eventually they decide that it was over and maybe we're in bed and they might put their arm around me or ask me a question, and I would literally leap up like a meerkat, like, oh my God, it's over. Oh my God, I will never do this again. I'll never break a rule because I can't bear this. I can't bear this. And obviously you do, you've done something that they didn't like. And after a while, it wasn't, I was breaking a rule. They just wanted to do it. It was just, I'm just going to punish you. And it was hard because I just, if I could figure out what it was I'd done wrong, I could fix it right. But actually got a point where I was like, oh my God, I don't actually think I've done anything wrong. How can I make amends? And the silent treatment went from 1 day to 3 days to 5 days to a week to 2 weeks, to the point where they just leave the house and not come home. And there was always another girl involved. The Instagram story was always other girls. They had a best friend who didn't want to meet me. Like, it was just like, I look back and go, wow, there was obvious signs that they were cheating because they had massive trust issues with me, even though I couldn't leave the house. I wasn't allowed. So how could I cheat when I can't go out? But then someone comments on my social media, well, I must be cheating. Speak to someone in the supermarket, who's that person? You must be cheating. And I've only really learned recently that's because it's a projection, because obviously he must have been cheating on me and it was confirmed to me, and I've never been cheated on. And I'm so glad I found that out after the relationship ended, because I think that would have broke me in
Put you over
half.
the edge. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
It's crazy to think before you continue, like, I'm just sitting here listening to your story, and I swear to God, Kat, it's literally my exact predicament in my last relationship. I don't know if these narcissists, like, they all come from the same playbook, because literally every person that I have interviewed who's been in a domestic violence relationship, whether it's physical or emotional or whatever, it's literally the same thing. It's like a slow drip, little by little by little by little, and then it starts to grow and fester, and then eventually the explosion happens. But it's just so crazy to me how so many of us are going through it, but when we're in it, I'm sure you felt so alone.
Yeah, I mean, luckily I had my sister and a best friend at the time, and I told them everything, because I think as well, you need to say it out loud of like, because I swear, I almost wanted them to be like, oh well, no wonder you did this, or no wonder he feels like that because you. But it didn't. They were siding with me. And I was going, oh well, they're siding with me because they're my friends and family. But after a while, just like, this is not normal. And my sister, bless her, had witnessed me in that other relationship because we'd lived with her. She's like, you're doing the same. It's the same thing. I'm like, no, it's not. Like, completely different. And he really loves me. And yeah, she put up with a lot. Like, luckily I could talk to them, but it was like, but they're not living with you. They're not on call 24/7. And like, it's that feeling of like, when I feel emotional, it's my stomach. I get so sick. Like, I just didn't eat, or I would throw up constantly. And I do things like lose weight for them, try and put weight back on for them, because, they never wanted to touch me. I couldn't understand why they'd always turn me down. And again, that was a controlling behavior. It was nothing to do with me. Or they were getting it elsewhere, which is quite likely, but I don't know. But it just got a point where even though I could share it with people, I was in the sisterhood, I was sharing it with them as well. But I genuinely felt like if I left, it's just my world would end. Like it was everything. Like it wasn't, obviously I love Australia, but it was like I was so invested in the relationship. Like I was so in love with them, which I realize now is more likely a trauma bond because again, I didn't know what that was. Wow, God, I was like, I remember he was punished me for something. Yeah, we were going to watch a movie and he said he loved me. And I said, do you really? Well, what do you mean? I was like, like genuinely, do you? And he's like, well, where's this coming from? And then I just said something about like he's been staying out late recently, and like I just felt a bit neglected. And he absolutely lost his rag, basically, lost his shit. Like, you have no idea what pressure I'm under, and how dare you? And I was just like, oh shit. I was like, I've done it again. Fuck, why did I say anything? And he went straight into a different room. And I walked in and I got on my hands and knees and I said, please, 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 can we just watch a movie? I'm so sorry. I will never, I didn't mean it. I can't do this again. And he came towards me quite aggressively. So I stood up and he just pushed me and slammed the door. And I think it was that moment I went, I just begged somebody to love me. But did it change? No, I just sat in the living room and, they probably started speaking to me again after about 7 days, maybe. But I look back and go, God, I had carpet burn.
Yeah, literally the same thing for me. I remember there was one incident before he started putting his hands on me that we had gotten to some sort of fight. I don't remember exactly what, but he moved in with me and he started packing up all his things. And I was like clawing at him not to leave. Even though he was treating me like shit, even though I knew he already cheated on me before, even though he was verbally and emotionally abusing me, I was so desperate to not have him walk away because I felt like this is it. This is my third failed relationship. I'm never going to find anyone else ever again. So I'm just going to continue with this because this is all that I'm worth. So I totally, totally understand you. And thank you so much for sharing that. It's not easy to talk about. It's not easy to listen to. It's not easy to relive, but I feel like when we do share our most vulnerable experiences for the listeners and the watchers, hey, YouTube, people are suffering in silence in these types of relationships. And it's in listening and taking in these kind of conversations that maybe a light bulb will turn on for them and they can be like, oh my God, I'm not crazy. Even though your abuser is going to make you feel like you're crazy. Gaslighting is a very trendy word, but it's something that's real that we've both experienced, right? So there's so much healing, not only for us to talk about what we went through, but for y'all who are taking it in. This just an inkling of what Kat is talking about sounds familiar. This is your permission to start reevaluating where you're at and start making the steps that maybe you need to take in order to permanently leave. So I want to know for you, what was it? What took you to finally say, no more? I'm done with this. What did that look like?
Towards the end, I was in the middle of one of the punishments. I think I'd been going on about a month and had walked out again. And I was so beside myself in the apartment that I was desperately going, what's the easiest way to kill yourself? If I slit my wrist, I was like, I couldn't slit my wrist because he comes back and finds the body. That's not fair to him. Like, I was just like, I don't know what do I do? I was like in the middle of the room going, I don't know what to do. Like, literally, do I die? Would that be easy? Like, I was so just like, I just didn't know how to make it stop. And I told my sister, she was like, I keep thinking, I used to go to her house. He'd let me go there because she's my sister, and obviously there's no boys there. And I stayed there once, and she came running in once, and she said, "Oh God, I'm so." She went, "I had a feeling." I went, "What?" She went, "I just thought I'd find you on the floor." And I think I didn't realize how much. It's not just me; it's the people around you. Like, because it seems like just leave him. It just didn't feel that easy. But basically, it was my sisterhood, Erica Kramer and the sisterhood. I shared a lot. I remember Erica got me on hot seat and was like, "You just have to make a decision. You either stay or you go." Not like that harshly, but it was kind of like because I just kept complaining about it and not doing anything about it. And then somebody gave me the number for Lifeline, and I rang them. And in all fairness, I didn't really have the best experience, unfortunately. But then they give me numbers for other hotlines, and I tried a few of them, and there's waiting lists. And I just thought, I just need some counseling on domestic violence so I know how to deal with it. That's all I need. And eventually I spoke to a wonderful organization called Orange Door. And they said, we need to assess you. You need to be somewhere private for an hour. Can you do that? So every day he would let me go out for a walk. So I had an hour, obviously, for my lunch break. So I went to a park and they just asked me loads of questions about my relationship. And I was very honest with them because I just thought, oh, cool, I'll get counseling for free. It'd be good. And at the end of the call, she went, okay, so based on what you've told me, we are genuinely concerned for your safety. And we honestly believe if you do not leave, he's going to hurt you and very likely you will be killed. And I was just like, what? Like I was just like, oh, I was like, calm down. Like it's not that bad. Like talk about exaggeration. You shouldn't be freaking people out like this. How dare you? Like I was so vehemently like, I cannot believe you would say that to me. He's never put a finger on me. And she was so nice. Like, I know, but I've seen this. It does escalate. Like we're genuinely so scared. We want you to get out. And I was like, what do you mean get out? Like that doesn't even make sense to me. How do I do that? Then she was like, so there's an emergency plan. And I went, can you just put me down for counseling? That's all I rang for. Can you stop filling my head with nonsense, basically? Should absolutely, well, put you on the list. It does take a while. But if you ever feel you want to take us up in the office, just ring us back. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, whatever. And then he started punishing me again. And it was one of the worst ones. And it was for something really, really silly. And he was using like basically use my personality against me, like I'm so pathetic, like get over myself kind of thing. And then he locked himself in a room and I was just like, oh god, it's gonna start again. And the punishment last one had been like a month and I was like, I cannot. I'm like, I'm so just exhausted. This is just too much. And I rang Lifeline and they weren't very helpful. And so I rang Orange Door the next day and I said, what do I do? And she went, okay, here's what you need to do. And so we put an emergency plan in place and basically they were like, you cannot tell him because if they find out, that could be the most dangerous time, which again, I didn't know those kind of things. And I feel like a coward, but I basically ran away when he wasn't there.
You're not a coward.
I know, and anyone listening would not, but obviously to me, I was just like, it felt cowardly to run away. And they didn't even realize what happened. They texted me like, "Why have you taken your stuff?" Like it was so like I was like, well, I don't really know what to say. And yeah, luckily they put me in emergency housing. I was very lucky. They really supported me. But honestly, leaving was the easiest part, because I just got to run away. But then being by myself somewhere no one's allowed to know the address, you're completely alone. I didn't know what I'd do next. I was so tempted to pick up the phone and just ring that person. They were texting me and I didn't know what to do. And I rang Lifeline and they told me like misinformation and I just didn't know what to do. And luckily the Orange Door had put me in touch with Salvation Army and a hospice and they came around and I remember they were giving me a bag of like toiletries and they were just so supportive. Like I remember I didn't want to leave to go get food in case someone saw me on the street. I put Friends on the TV and I think I sat for 2 days and just watched Friends because I didn't have to think about anything. But for the first time in 3 years, I slept very well. Like I passed out, my body just completely shut down because it was safe for the first time. I do remember the housekeeper knocking on the door and I absolutely was so scared and he ran under the bed. But I think I didn't know what to do next. And then I discovered I had to go to the police, which I wasn't aware I'd have to do. But luckily, again, they supported me. Someone came with me. And I'm so grateful that when I walked into that police station, there was a woman at the duty desk. Because if it would have been a man, I think I would have walked back out again. No offense to them. Yeah. And she took me into a room and she was actually training to be a specialist within family violence in the police. Because obviously in Australia, there's new laws about it now. And I'm very grateful that she took me seriously. It took me 2 days to give my statement because I took a 40-page report with me of everything I'd experienced. Luckily, I'd written it down. And yeah, then they granted me an IVO straight away and they handled it for me, which was very lucky on my behalf. But then it was just a series of, he wouldn't let me break the lease for the apartment, so I got dragged through courts for that. He kept demanding I go back to the house to pick up the rest of my belongings, so the police had to come with me, and that was horrible. When I went into the apartment, he'd set up things in the apartment that I'd see on purpose. Like he took out every single card I'd ever given him and put them on display. Like his mother had left weird notes. It was just so manipulative. And I was pointing stuff out at the police, but obviously they didn't understand him like I knew the things he was doing there. So yeah, it was just a series of that. And then obviously I didn't have a visa because he was my visa. Many months of, I moved 9 times in 10 months because I was terrified of being found. I had a case officer, thank God, for 6 months who supported me. But yeah, it's like I look back and it was just a big blur of police statements and court appearances and being scared of my own shadow, basically.
And a lot of healing too. Like a lot of healing has happened to that. And when people ask like, "Oh, why don't you just leave? It's just that simple." It's really not that simple. It's really not. And you really don't understand it until you're in it. Sometimes we feel like if we just stay, it's easier because we know what to expect. That fear of the unknown after leaving, like you said earlier, leaving is the most dangerous time for a victim of DV because they're losing the control that they have over you and they're going to do whatever they can to maintain that. And a lot of the times, unfortunately, we see the headlines that people succumb to the abuse because they decided to leave. So it's not that cut and dry. And I'm just so, so proud of you, even though I know it's been hard. It's been roller coaster of emotions for you mentally, physically, moving 9 times in 10 months. That's what you said. I couldn't even imagine. But you've done a lot of work and a lot of healing since then. And I want to know, I said when we first started recording, you weren't ready to come on my podcast before and share your story. What changed for you to feel like now I'm ready to share publicly my story and everything that I gone through? What was it for you emotionally and mentally that shifted, that gave you the strength to really come forward?
Honestly, I don't really know. As in, it feels like it was yesterday, and it also feels like it was 10 years ago. Because obviously, after I did all this court stuff and all the paperwork, and everything stopped, and I was okay. My kids obviously was like, "You have to feel it now." And I was like, "Feel what?" She's like, "You haven't felt it. You've been going nonstop for 6 months. You need to feel it." And I was like, "I don't want to feel it." You have to. I was like, "I don't want to feel it." And I went to a retreat, and I was so closed off, and I was just like, yeah, I'm doing the work, and yeah, this is fine. And I was with Erica, and she was just so like, oh my God, you're so just two-dimensional. Like, there's nothing here. And I was like, what does she mean? I was just like, oh, like I was so just, well, I've done all the things, I've done all the work, it's fine, everything will be fine. And I'm still doing it now. It doesn't go away. I met up with another coach who's also a friend, and she's like, think about, you've experienced trauma your entire life in some way, shape, or form. She's like, you don't get over it in a day, you don't get over it in a year. She's like, it's gonna stay with you forever. And there's things like, I know I still have PTSD episodes where I don't even realize it's PTSD, and I work with counselors to go through like, why is this happening? Like, it's PTSD from this. I'm like, oh wow, I didn't even know. Like, I just kind of thought. And a lot of people in my life who obviously don't know any better, and it's fine, were just like, well, you've left now, so stop talking about him. You've left now, so you should be fine. My own dad refuses to speak to me about it. He let me tell my story once, and now he's just like, don't you have people there to talk to? Just get on with your life, you're fine. But it's like, I think hearing that as well, it was like, oh, I'm not fine. And I'm still in the sisterhood. It's an incredible community who've been there for me from the get-go. And I've told my story in there. I've touched on it a little bit. I did do Erica's podcast, but I touched on it a little bit more. And I've had other sisters come to me who are in these relationships right now, who were in these relationships, or who are in them and don't recognize it, but obviously outsiders, we can see it. And I thought, oh my God, like, if I don't say anything, people, like you said, sometimes don't know or don't actually realize the relationship they're in is toxic or is abusive, because I didn't. When I went to the police, I thought, well, they're going to laugh me out of the room because I don't have any physical violence. When I tried to get my visa, they were like, so where's the medical reports? So what do you mean? Of the abuse, broken bones. I was like, well, I don't have any. Oh, like, are you serious? Like, so unless he like breaks my nose, it's not. So I was like, wow. So there's a big, okay. So it's kind of like twofold. I want to help women out there by sharing my story so they could understand and look for signs of abuse and hopefully get out if they can. But also raise the awareness of, it's not being punched in the face. It's not being thrown to the floor. That does happen, and it's horrible, and no one should experience it. But it's all those little things. It's insidious. It sneaks in. My own dad said to me, how on earth did you let this happen? How on earth could this happen to you? First off, it's your fault. You taught me to do this as a child. But also, like, because it is insidious, because you don't know what's happening until you're so thick in it, it's become your life. And it's happened more than once to me. And I genuinely don't think it would happen again, but I don't know that for certain. And that's why I have to keep doing the work, because certain things are like, a guy might approach me at a bar, and straight away I'm terrified, because I'm like, what do you want? What do you need from me? I don't want to give you anything. It's almost like I've gone too far the other way sometimes. So I have to, yeah, it's scary. I'm here and I'm still terrified. Like, I'm shaking right now. So it's still like, I'm not ready, but I am ready. It's
Yeah,
hard.
I totally understand you. That's why, honestly, there's still a lot of fear in me, which is why I have not put myself back out there in the dating scene. I've been single since March of 2021. I've been celibate since then. Like, I'm so hyper focused on me that there is still a huge fear of what if it happens again. That's why it's super important to work with people. I hired a life coach to help me, who's specifically helps their clients with relationships issues, especially the relationship that you have with yourself. And I'm just like, this healing journey, I say it all the time, but it is not linear. It's never ending, especially when you come from abuse and trauma. I was also diagnosed with PTSD, so I get it. Those triggers, they come up. You don't know when they're going to come up. You could just be watching a movie and a line or a song or something comes on and it reminds you of that person, and that'll trigger you, could literally ruin your entire day. But that's why it's so important to have that healing toolkit to be able to pull it out when those moments comes up, but this is going to be with us forever. But I'm so proud of the growth that has come despite the ebbs that do come in this healing journey, you know what I mean? It's not rainbows and butterflies. There's definitely moments that I still struggle, and I just appreciate you for being so candid and open and honest about it, because this is real life. It's not just, rainbows and butterflies. And now that we're out of this abusive relationship, we're living our best life. Yes, we are, but there's also a downside to it that we're still struggling and trying to work through every single day. So I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah, it's very hard. I remember once just trying to get some groceries and a song came on my phone and I was like frozen. I was like, why am I frozen? What is this song? And I got into my car and I reversed it straight into a pool. And it wasn't on purpose. I wasn't trying to hurt myself. I literally just didn't think to turn the wheel. And I was just sat there in the car like, what's just happened? And I didn't know that was just like my whole body just went into this big freeze. I was like, wow. It like obviously nothing that dangerous has happened since, but things like just keep happening. Like I'm having panic attacks for things. I don't know what it is. And I do work through it with a therapist or with a coach, and I'm like, oh, okay. And it's weird because you can't really plan for it, like you say. It's almost like being hit by something that you can't be prepared for. And I'm kind of surrounded by it all the time. There's even certain places I can't go. It just feels dangerous to me, but it's not. It's in my own head. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get it. I literally escaped from the state that I was living in. I went back home, and last year I did end up going to visit my sister back where I lived, and I forced myself to go back to my apartment building so I could like not get over, but like see how much growth came from me putting myself back in the place where everything happened, not inside the apartment, but the actual complex. And I drove by it with my daughter next to me, and I was just like, wow, my reaction is a lot different than what I thought it was going to be. I've done a lot of growth and healing, and for that I'm proud. But yeah, there's still definitely there's TV shows that I can't watch because I used to watch it with him all the time. There's songs that if I hear it I'm going to skip it immediately. Like there's still a lot of things that come with it, but I'm so proud of both of us for being who we are today despite the shit that we went through before. So, give yourself a little round of applause. So, I do want to ask you this. What would you say for not the survivors, but the people in their lives, friends, family? What would you say are some practical steps that they can do to support a survivor? And what shouldn't they do?
So being on the other side of it now and having women come to me to talk about the abuse they're experiencing, what I'm realizing is it's really hard for me, who's been through it, not to go, just leave them. And it sounds so messed up, but it does. In my gut just goes, oh, just leave them because your life will be so much better. And I did it. And it's so flippant and not helpful. So please stop saying it to people, because here's the thing. I wasn't ready and I couldn't, and I wasn't strong enough. I didn't feel like I was actually physically able to, let alone mentally. So please don't say that. And here's the thing, we are going to keep repeating the same thing. You can compare it to a colleague at work that complains about the job and never leaves. Obviously, it's more serious than that, but it's sometimes people just need to say it out loud. And if you remove that space where they can just say it, you basically get isolated to the point where the only thing in their life will be themselves and their perpetrator. And that's the most dangerous spot to be in if they cannot say anything out loud. And also, maybe they're not saying it, but you just know, or you have an inkling. Don't push it. Just be like, I know this is happening to you, because sometimes they're not ready. Like me, sometimes everyone can be very much like, oh, will you talk about it and ask me questions? I go, no, you can't just ask me to open up. Like I had to get prepared for this interview. Like I didn't sleep. I had nightmares last night because I was processing stuff of what was going to happen. It's like I'm not an open book. You can't just, and even women in the sisterhood, like I'll be there for you, but I can be there for you when I'm ready. I can't just be something you're lying, because it triggers me. It brings up stuff for me. It's hard for me I'm not flippant about my own experience. So yeah, be there. Don't close that door. Don't push too hard, and don't make assumptions about, and even if like me, I've been in it, but every situation is different. And, I can say this is what I did. This is what helped me. This is, things that I did, but I can't say that is going to be the right thing for you. And also, like, people in different countries or different situations. Some people are married, some people have kids. I have no idea what that's like. I mean, I imagine that is just the hardest thing ever, because there's other people involved, and I can't give you experience for that, but I can hold space for you. I can listen, and I can say, well, I reached out to this person and that person. I tried this and I tried that. that's much I can give you until you're ready to leave. And when you are ready to leave, okay, cool, let's take the next step together. Like I wouldn't have left without the support of the sisterhood and my sister. If I didn't have them to be able to share with, I'd either still be there or I wouldn't be on this planet right now. That's the way I look at it. It's that serious to me. Like they give me the space and the time and the support to do it when I was ready.
Absolutely. And I love that you pointed that out, that it's your journey and it's your timeline, and that's okay. Just letting people know that I'm not closing this door. I heard it before over and over. You leave, you come back, you leave, you come back. I'm not going to judge you because I get it. It's hard. And even if someone hasn't been in that situation, just like you said, holding space and being like, it's okay. I'm here when you're ready, that can literally change your life. Because thinking about me when I was in it, no one knew what I was going through. What I portrayed to the world, social media, like it was the best relationship of my life, but no one really knew that I was suffering behind closed doors until it got to the point that he almost killed me. And that's the first time that I spoke up and asked for help. Having at least one person, whether it's a friend or a colleague or a family member or someone that you met online, a stranger that has become an internet friend, just having at least one person in your corner can literally change your life. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, and if you feel like you don't have that person, there are numbers you could call that are confidential. And if you feel safe to make that phone call, like they can also support you. I still had bad experiences with Lifeline, but I would still ring them. It's not them as a whole. I just got misinformation. But actually, if I didn't get that first call, like that, being given that number for Lifeline, put me on the path to leaving as well. So don't feel like there isn't other people out there that can support you for whatever you need. Even if you just want to talk about it, they'll listen.
Absolutely. Yes. And I'm definitely going to leave some resources in the show notes for people who can benefit from them here in the States and where you are in Australia. And I do also like that you said that even though the first couple of times it didn't work out, like you didn't completely shut it off and say, fuck it, I'm not going to do this. Like there's so many resources out there, and it's up to us to go through the ones that maybe that's not so great, but let me try another avenue until you find the one that works best for you. So, let that be permission too for anyone who's listening or watching, that like just because it doesn't work out the first time doesn't mean that it's not meant to be and you have to just give up completely. Like there's so many people and resources out there for you, and just take the time to go through them. I know it's exhausting, it's a process, but still it's out there for you if you're ready to receive it. So, this title of this episode is How to Reclaim Your Power After Domestic Violence. So, being the woman that you are with everything that you've gone through, what would you say is two or three ways for someone listening to be able to truly reclaim their power after experiencing domestic violence?
So for me, there was a lot of things about me, like interests and hobbies and personality traits that I've had my whole life that when I first got this person they loved, but then little by little they get rid of them to the point where you don't really know yourself. So it's definitely spending some time. Do not jump into another relationship. I know as tempting as it seems, please, please, please do not do that. I don't care how amazing he is. It's that rediscovering with yourself, and it's terrifying. I didn't want to leave. Like I didn't leave many of the places I lived in for a long time. But even in there, I could be like, right, okay, so what do? I might write, might even just watch a TV show that they didn't let me watch. Or it's finding those little things that make you you. And then when you feel more confident or you feel like you're ready to go to the next level, what hobby did you used to love doing? And if you didn't have a hobby, try every single thing out there that you can think of to do. Like it sounds a bit weird. I'm a massive horror fan. You know what I mean? And I work as a scare actor. I get paid to scare people. And I was like, oh my God, I could do that again. Can I go do that? Oh my God, I can just go get that job and do that. And, no one gets it, no one understands it. It's a very strange thing to do. But I get to do that because that interests me and it lights me up and it makes me who I am and I get to be who I am. All right, cool. So it's find those little things, definitely just explore that. Try and reconnect with who you were. And if you're struggling, then just try a few things and see, it might be something like new that you found out. Reclaiming your power, definitely. Whoever got you through, it's like you are the five people you spend the most time with. Who is it that really had your back? Who was there the whole time? And sometimes they've served their purpose. So the big thing I learned was when I was in my past relationship, I was attracting some friends who were also quite toxic that I didn't recognize at the time because I was so ingrained in his behavior that when I did leave and I was, I went a bit like just trying to find myself and I was a bit like trying to be really confident and making mistakes. And this person actually said to me, I don't like who you are now. So you prefer me being abused? So our friendship broke down and I felt really sad, but I was like, actually, it's released me from everything that was in that part of my life. And that person got me through parts of that. And maybe that's what the friendship was there for. But if they do not want to let me breathe and make mistakes and develop and grow, then they're not on the right path for me, because my path right now is self discovery and self love. So it's okay to not feel like you have to cling on to everything that was connected to that past life. Obviously, some people, yeah, like the sister, obviously, yeah, she's still a rock. She's amazing and she gets it. But obviously, it's so scary to trust. But it's also like the other thing. If you don't work with a coach or don't work with a therapist, I highly, highly recommend. Like, I was on a wait list for 9 months to get someone for free, which is really, really long wait time. And I know there's a lot of pressure on services, but even if it is ringing that number or something, I would keep talking to somebody about it, because these things are going to pop up, the PTSD episodes, or even just triggers, or the days where you're like, I just want to ring them. I just want to get back with them. I've seriously had days where I'm like, oh, was you just in bed next to me? And I'm like, wow, but it is, because it's just going to happen. You have to deal with it. But it's like how you deal with it in that moment. If you don't do the work or don't have that support, you need that. And you cannot become who you want to be and step into your power without the support network. It's so important. And that's why I'm still in the sisterhood. That's why, I can jump in a Facebook group and do a live and just have a chat with them. Or I can go to an event, or I can go to a therapist, or I can have a session. And it's that you cannot be powerful without women around you who love and respect you and support you exactly as who you are. And if you don't know who that person is yet, they give you the breathing space to find out, and they let you make mistakes, because you're going to make mistakes. I'm still making them, and it's absolutely fine.
Yes. Oh my god, I love that so much. And, even though I'm not in the sisterhood anymore, but I remember, like, when me and you first connected and just how you were, like, timid and, like, shy and didn't really wanna be seen, and just to see and hear you right now, even though I know you're terrified and you're probably sweating and trembling, but, like, I see so much growth within you, and I'm so fucking proud of you. Like, seriously, it's just such a beautiful thing to witness that how much you have changed from the first time that me and you were supposed to have this conversation to now. Like, I'm glad. I'm glad we waited, because I know it would have been a completely different perspective and story if we would have recorded a year ago. So I just want to say, sis, I see you. I am so proud of you, and I'm so honored to know you, and just know that you are changing so many lives just by having this conversation with me and doing the work and really showing up for yourself and for others. Like, you're radiating.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm in a really good place now. I have my own apartment. My business is thriving. I did meet a very, very nice young man who, I had to have a therapist while dating him, because I couldn't understand why he was being so nice to me. So I've had to go the other way. And what is uncomfortable to me is good and nice stuff. And I've had to learn that the uncomfortable feeling is, oh, I'm meant to feel comfortable. It's been such an interesting journey of trying to unlearn that behavior. So yeah, I'm glad we waited a year, because the girl who was the
Yes.
last year, like every single day, I think I feel different. I've changed. I went on 2 retreats since that podcast. The first one, like I wasn't really there. The second one, I went all in, and I look back and go, wow, I can't even recognize the person at the first retreat. The second retreat, that's all me. That's really in there. Yeah, it's been interesting, but it's still, it's still going, still learning curve. And I think the other key thing I'd like your listeners to know is, and we talked about this when we first connected, a lot of people, like my own dad, but you're a white woman and you're British and you've got some money in the bank and you've got a good job. How on earth could you be a victim of domestic violence? How does that happen? Because people have such a weird view of who it could happen to. And I just want to tell everybody it can happen to absolutely anybody. And bear in mind, it's not even just women, it happens to men as well, that you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. And if it happened to me, it can happen to anybody. So don't feel like it's not you because of you, who you are, the color of your skin, what you believe in, your background. It's nothing to do with that. It's not even to do with gender. It's to do with the perpetrator who comes into your life. And it is all them. It's a projection. It's not you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. I was very ignorant to the whole domestic violence thing before I found myself in it. I was always the type of like, that could never happen to me. If it was me, I would just fucking leave. Very this closed minded, but you really don't get it until you're in it. And I'm so glad that you said that, because it happens to everyone, no matter your age, your gender, what you have in the bank, your religion, your anything. It's going to affect someone that you know in your life if you have not personally been a victim to it. So thank you for sharing that. I do want to ask you before we start to wind down the conversation. If you had the opportunity right now to say something to your past abusers, being who you are and all the healing that you've done, what is one thing you would tell them?
Honestly, I forgive you and I forgive me. And I don't say that lightly. And I'm not saying that anybody should ever forgive anybody that does anything cruel or demeaning to them. And when I say it, it's a work in progress. But being in those relationships, having my childhood, has made me who I am right now. You know, my very last relationship, he forced me into therapy because I was so fucked up in the head. And I'm so grateful to him for doing that because I did need to go to therapy. I did, not for the reasons he said. Therapy, the people I found weren't great, but then I found coaching. That's how I found the sisterhood. That's how I found my subsequent coaches. So him pushing me into therapy became the reason I eventually left because I found my self worth through doing the work, as we call it, by trying to heal the wounds of my childhood. So I forgive my perpetrators and I forgive myself because I did the best I could with what I knew at the time. And now I can't unlearn what I've learned. And that's why I genuinely don't think it would happen again because I understand red flags. I know how to spot them. I trust my body so much when, I dated a guy when I was younger for 2 years. I was sick so much. And I mean physically sick. And I learned that that was my body rejecting that relationship. And I had no idea because I didn't know. I just thought there was something wrong with me. And now it's like I pay attention to every single sign it gives me. So thank you for making me who I am today. No one should ever have to go through that, and I hope they don't. And if they are going through it, I send you so much strength and love that you can get out and build the life that you want. But I am going to have the most amazing fucking life. I'm going to just keep rising and have wonderful experiences, and I'm not going to let this be everything that who I am. I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor, and I'm thriving. And everybody has the right to do that. And yeah,
Yes, yes, queen.
survivor to thriver. Fuck you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that. That just gave me like full body chills. I honestly couldn't think of a better way to end this conversation. I do want to ask you my final question that I ask every guest before we completely shut down. You're on the Watch Us Thrive podcast, so tell me your definition of thriving.
Thriving is being exactly who you want to be in exactly the way you want to be it. I don't care how it looks to anybody else. I don't care what anyone else's opinion is about it. If you are happy, you feel free, you feel comfortable, you feel like you can shine, fuck everybody else's opinion. Fuck what others think. That's it. Because
Yes.
it's one life. If you're happy, you do you, boo, because there's only one of you and that's what makes you special. So yeah, just do it.
This conversation is so good. I'm so proud of you. That's why I always like starting off with the dark and heavy and then ending on a more positive note, because I really want to give the listeners and the viewers the permission within themselves to know that, like, just by listening to just a little bit of your story and what you've gone through, look at who you are today, despite of everything that happened in the past. And I'm so proud of you. I can't wait to continue watching you grow and thrive and flourish. And I know my listeners and my viewers are going to want to follow you, work with you, all of that. So please plug in your social media, your website, any offerings that you have that we can put in the episode show notes.
So I'm an online business manager for female coaches because I feel like if I can give back to women who changed my life and they can change other women's lives, then that is a job well done. So I've got a brand new website. I'm very excited about it. It's very horror themed. So you can find me at my website and all social media at Cat Louise Dunn. That's Cat with a C. So Cat Louise Dunn on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and that's my website, catlouisedunn.com. So yeah, come have a chat with me.
Yes. Thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. Again, I'm so proud of you, the growth that has happened since me and you first connected. It warms my heart to just see you out here killing it. And I'm so, so proud of you. Thank you so much again for agreeing to come on and have such a beautiful conversation. And I can't wait to continue witnessing you out here just like living your best life. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.